There's a specific kind of silence that you only experience when you live miles away from the nearest town. It's not empty. It's heavy. It presses against your ears. My parents had bought this farmhouse about 6 months ago. They called it a retirement dream. I called it isolation. When they told me they were leaving for the weekend to visit relatives, I wasn't scared. Honestly, I was relieved. No nagging, no chores, just me, my PC, and 48 hours of absolute freedom. Or so I thought. By 11 p.m., the rain had started. It wasn't a storm, just a steady, rhythmic drumming against the roof. I was deep into a gaming session, headphones on, completely disconnected from the real world. My room is on the second floor. It's an old house with high ceilings, so my window is a good 20 feet off the ground. Keep that in mind. It's important. 20 feet. That's 2 stories up. No balcony, no trellis, just sheer brick wall all the way down to the dirt. I remember the moment the atmosphere changed. It wasn't a noise at first. It was a feeling. You know that primal instinct? The one that tells you you're being watched? The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I paused my game and took off my headphones. The house was dead silent, except for the rain. I laughed at myself. "You're playing too many horror games, Mike," I whispered. But the feeling didn't go away. Then I heard it. It was soft, barely audible in the rain. Tap, tap, tap. 3 distinct knocks. Not random, not the wind blowing a branch. It had a rhythm, intelligence. I froze in my chair, my eyes locked on the black square of the window. My brain immediately tried to rationalize it. A bird? Maybe a large beetle hitting the glass? I sat there for maybe a full minute, just breathing, waiting for it to happen again. When it didn't, I convinced myself it was just the old house settling. Wood expands and contracts, right? I put my headphones back on, but I didn't unpause the game. I just sat there, listening to the silence. And then it came back, louder this time. It wasn't a tap anymore. It was a knuckle rapping against the glass. Deliberate, impatient. Someone was knocking on my window, my second-story window. The logic of the situation began to crumble. To knock on that glass, someone would need a 20-foot ladder, and I would have heard a ladder being set up against the wall. I would have heard the scrape of metal on brick. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Part of me expected to see my dad pranking me, somehow floating on a hidden platform. Another part of me expected, well, I didn't know what to expect. I walked to the window. My reflection stared back at me from the dark glass, pale, wide-eyed, terrified. I cupped my hand around the light and pressed it against the cold glass to see outside. The beam of light cut through the rain. I swept it left, then right. I looked down at the ground below. Nothing. No ladder, no person standing below, no ropes hanging from the roof, just the wet grass and the empty yard. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "It's just the wind," I said aloud. "Just the wind." I turned my back to the window to head back to my desk. I felt foolish. I was a grown man scared of the weather. But as I took my first step away, a sound froze me in place. A sound that I will never forget as long as I live. It was the sound of a wet palm slamming against the window and slowly sliding down. My blood turned into ice. I stared at the glass. There, illuminated by the weak glow of my flashlight, was a handprint. A fresh, wet handprint. But it was on the outside of the glass. The fingers were too long, too thin, and the placement, it was near the top of the frame. Whatever put it there wasn't just standing on a ladder. It was pressing against the glass from above. I don't know why I didn't run immediately. Maybe I was paralyzed. I slowly moved my flashlight beam up, tracing the trail of water on the glass. Just then, lightning tore through the sky, and for a split second, the world outside was as bright as day. That's when I saw it. A face. pale like dead skin soaked in water for days. It wasn't floating, it was swaying. It had a neck, a long, impossible neck that stretched all the way down into the darkness of the yard below. It was like a human head on a 20-foot snake of flesh, and it was smiling at me. It wasn't looking at me, it was looking past me, looking inside. It slammed its forehead against the glass. Crack! The sound snapped me out of my trance. The spider web of fractured glass obscured that horrible smile. I screamed. I dropped the flashlight and scrambled backward. Tripping over my own chair, I didn't wait for it to break through. I ran. I bolted out of my room and slammed the door behind me. I heard the window shatter completely just as the latch clicked. The wind and rain howled into the house, but underneath that sound, I heard a wet, heavy thump on the floorboards of my room. It was inside. I ran to my parents' bedroom at the end of the hall. It had the thickest door. I locked it, engaged the deadbolt, and dived into their walk-in closet, burying myself under a pile of old coats. I dialed 911. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped the phone twice. The operator told me police were on their way, but then I heard it in the hallway. It didn't walk like a person. It sounded like dragging, shh clump, shh clump. It was dragging that long body across the floor. It stopped right outside the bedroom door. I held my breath until my lungs burned. The doorknob slowly turned. Just as the wood of the door began to splinter under its weight, blue and red lights flooded the room through the window. Sirens. I never loved a sound more in my life. I heard a hiss from the other side of the door, like a leaking pipe, and then fast, retreating, scurrying sounds back toward my room. The police found my room destroyed. The window was gone. My PC was smashed. They told me it was likely a drug addict or a wild animal that got confused. They tried to be reassuring, but they didn't see what I saw. Before I left that house forever, I walked around to the backyard. I looked at the brick wall under my window. There were scratches, deep gouges in the red brick, leading all the way from the ground up to the second floor, like something had dug its claws in and pulled itself up, defying gravity. I live in the city now, ground floor, bars on the windows. But sometimes when it rains, I still find myself looking up at the ceiling, wondering if that neck is stretching down from the roof.